Magandang araw, mga cults and coffee. Welcome back. Make sure you've got your cupping baraka ready, because today,
Oh, may I ask why?
Yeah.
Cupping Baracco.
well, you know it's strong and bold, just like the topic we're covering today,
Okay.
or MCGI, and their belief about women not cutting their hair.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one for sure. I mean, it's one of those doctrines that gets a lot of attention.
Yeah, and speaking of attention, I'm sure we've all had those moments, right? Those
Oh, yeah.
haircut horror stories.
Definitely.
Mine involves some seriously blunt bangs and like way too much hairspray.
Oh,
It
no.
was a dark time.
I can only imagine.
But MCGI takes this whole hair thing to a whole other level.
Yeah.
They're saying that even a trim could send you straight to, you guessed it, hellfire.
Wow, yeah, that's where things get really interesting. Their whole argument is based on 1 Corinthians 11, where Paul talks about head coverings and hair length.
Right. But here's the thing. MCGI interprets long hair as in hair that has never ever been cut.
Yeah.
Not even a little snip for those split ends.
Yeah, and that's a pretty big leap considering that the original Greek word for long hair in that passage, komash, just means having long hair. It doesn't say anything about it being uncut.
So like imagine your Tito with hair down to his ankles.
No.
If he trims it even a little bit, is he suddenly breaking some divine law?
Right? And it gets even more confusing when you think about MCGI's stance on men having long hair. It's
A bit contradictory, right?
yeah, it really
So it's like
is.
gulo na nga, ginugulo ba.
Exactly.
But what's really interesting here is that 1 Corinthians 11 might not actually be about hair lengths at all.
Yeah, you're right. It's more about headship.
Yeah.
The concept of authority and order, especially in worship, Paul was using illustrations that would make sense to the people he was writing to.
So it's kind of like when Lola tells you to manopla to your elders. Like if you don't understand Filipino culture,
Yeah.
it just looks like you're grabbing someone's hand.
Exactly. Paul's audience in ancient Corinth, they would understood what head coverings and hair length meant in their society. But to say those specific cultural practices are universal laws, that's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Cool.
Now, MCGI has a lot of arguments to defend their doctrine. You ready to break them down?
Let's do it. I'm ready.
Okay, first up, they say women shouldn't cut their hair because it naturally grows long. It's part of their biological nature.
But if that's the case, shouldn't men also not cut their hair? I mean, their hair grows long too.
Right.
Why the double standard? And shouldn't biology be the basis for all our choices? That's a bit of a slippery slope.
It's like saying piña grows naturally on the ground, so we shouldn't be planting them in pots. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it shows how dangerous it can be to take the Bible too literally without thinking about the historical and cultural context.
Okay, next argument. They say men's hair grows faster. That's why they have to cut it. But women shouldn't because theirs grows slower.
Yeah. But that logic doesn't really work, does it? Just because something grows at a certain speed doesn't mean you have to or shouldn't cut it.
So maybe by their logic, men shouldn't cut their hair either.
Right. It just shows the inconsistencies in their reasoning.
If you're finding this deep dive as interesting as we are, make sure to hit that subscribe button and share this episode with your friends. We'll be back with more of MCGI's claims and biblical breakdowns after a quick break.
Okay, so are we ready for more MCGI hair arguments?
Hit me with it.
Okay, this one's a bit tricky. They say that long hair is a woman's sign of authority. They base this on 1 Corinthians 11.10.
Wait, so they're saying long hair equals girl power, MCGI style.
Well, not exactly. You see, in Corinth, back in the day, a veil was actually the symbol of a woman submitting to authority, not her hair length. And in the original Greek, it's clear that they're talking about a separate veil and not just their hair.
So it's like when Lolo wears a Baron Tagalog to special occasions.
Yeah.
It shows respect, but he doesn't have to wear it all the time.
Right. It's about the symbolism, not the hair itself. And that symbolism was specific to their culture back then.
Gotcha. Okay. What's their next argument?
All right. So the next one is the glory in the sight of God argument. They say a woman's long hair is her glory, so she should never cut it.
That's kind of nice, actually.
Yeah, but the problem is they're taking one verse out of context. 1 Corinthians 11.5 does say that long hair is a glory to her, but it doesn't say it's a sin to cut it. Paul was probably just talking about what people thought was beautiful back then.
Okay, so it's like saying, we admire Tunalak weaving from Mindanao. We can appreciate it without thinking we have to wear it every day.
Exactly. It's about cultural beauty standards, not some unbreakable rule from God.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, what's their last argument?
All right, this one is interesting. It's the Nazirite vow exemption. They say Nazirites, like Samson, were exempt from the rule that men have to have short hair.
Okay.
And this is where it all falls apart. There actually wasn't a rule that men had to have short hair back then.
So there was no rule to be exempt from in the first place.
Exactly. And second, if long hair was such a serious rule for women, why were female Nazarites told to shave their heads after their vow? It's in number 6.18.
Wait, so women were actually shaving their heads sometimes for religious reasons?
It really makes you question MCGI's interpretation, right?
Definitely. So it seems like hair length was more about culture than a strict law from God.
That seems to be the case.
So we've talked a lot about MCGI's arguments. But what does this uncut hair rule actually mean for women in MCGI? It can't just be about bad hair days.
Oh, definitely not. This doctrine can actually cause problems for women in MCGI.
Like what?
Well, think about the cost of taking care of super long hair. It's a lot of money and time, especially for people who might not have a lot of either.
Yeah, that's true. All the products and salon visits, it adds up.
And there are safety concerns, too. Sadly, women with really long hair are easily recognized as MCGI members, and that can make them targets for discrimination or even violence.
That's awful. It shows how these doctrines about appearance can have really serious consequences.
Yeah.
It's scary to think that something like hair could cause so many problems.
And there's another consequence that's even more worrying. It affects the culture of the church. This focus on how people look can make members feel like they're better than others.
So it's like saying, our long hair makes us holier, which doesn't sound very humble or loving.
Exactly. It can create division and fear instead of unity and love. And that goes for people inside and outside the church. True holiness comes from the heart, not from your hairstyle.
Yeah, as a Christian, that's what worries me the most. It turns faith, which is beautiful, into a bunch of strict rules.
Yeah.
And that can push people away from God.
That's a really important point. It shows why we need to think critically about the Bible. Don't just believe everything you hear.
Yeah.
Study it yourself, search for truth, and don't be afraid to question man-made rules.
So what have we learned? We've seen that MCGI's uncut hair doctrine isn't really based on the Bible. It uses faulty logic and can hurt both individuals and the church.
It reminds us to be careful about what we believe and why. We should always ask questions, look at different viewpoints, and let love guide us.
Great point. Now here's something to think about while you enjoy your kapeng barako. How do our own cultures and ideas affect how we understand the Bible? What other examples can you think of? Tell us in the comments.
That's a great question to think about. There's always more to discover about faith and the Bible.
And that's what Cults and Coffee is all about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into MCGI and their uncut hair doctrine. Don't forget to subscribe for more interesting conversations.
My voice to follow their rules. I had no choice. With fear as their weapon, they shattered my trust. But now I see